Jared, what's happened here? This is looking like a bit of a disaster.
It is a disaster. A few years ago I had a machine here doing some work on the dam, and I got him to make this channel through here. It's the overflow from the dam, and then we had if you look behind you, we dug up a pile of rocks, and we put some of the rocks down here to create a rocky spillway, so when the dam overflowed, all the water would riffle over the rocks down the gully, and we thought it was going to be right. A couple of weeks ago we had 50 mil of rain, and we came down and we did this bit of rock work down here. You can see the pipe, and it was a bit iffy, but that was as good as we could do. Just a couple of days ago we had 60 mil. We don't get these big rainfall events too often, and when we do we get a lot of runoff, and so the 60 mil came down, and I came down this morning to check, and there was a rabbit hole here, and the water had gone down the rabbit hole and it's completely blown out. If you come around the other side, you can see right under me there was a substantial undercut, and so what we've done there is we put in a heap of rocks. So now you can see this water, it hits the rocks, and what that does, that takes the energy out of the water so it's not so erosive. An hour ago that was dropping a metre, and when the water drops a metre it has quite a bit of force and it stirs up the soil. Actually you can see down here that the water's clearing in amongst the rocks because we're taking the energy away and it's just trickling down. Our fear now, and it's not a fear, it's a certainty, this whole bank here is going to collapse. So at some stage in the probably near future, we'll do another video and you'll be able to see how this will be completely collapsed.
Why? Can I just ask, Jared, why will it collapse? Where's the water going from there?
Well, if you come around, it's gone through a rabbit burrow, and it's coming out just out here.
Oh wow, that's how many metres is that from that essential sinkhole to there?
Right, 8 metres.
So do you expect that whole bank from where that eucalypt tree that was in the side of frame all the way along here to you, do you expect all of this to collapse in?
There'll be tons of material here that will just disappear. If you can bring the camera down here, you can see what the bank's made of, and you can see why it's going to collapse. See, there's a row of rocks there, and there's a row of soil and more soil there, and you can see that right along here. So this part of the farm over millennia has eroded and it's changed. The silt and sands come down and rocks have come down and it's slowly built up. 60 years ago, Australia had a massive rabbit problem, and this farm was one of the farms where they had big rabbit drives. Now, what that was, up in these hills here, you can see the bare rocks, they would have been covered with soil. The rabbits got under there and caused erosion, and the rain has brought it all down here. And so this today is another example of what was happening 60 years ago. If Lisa turns the phone around, you can see some of the material that's come out, and it's all come out of this rabbit hole just below me. It would have been pretty spectacular to
I just want everyone to know that I am getting wet feet for the joy of you guys seeing this. So that's the rabbit hole. I'm just filming it for you all, and we'll go back to Jared.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, but at the same time, it's not good. This is one of the times when I made a mistake. I should have done more work over here 2 or 3 weeks ago. And further up the gully, you can see where I've planted some revegetation, and that's what we need as well. And we're just talking, and we've missed the season this year, but next year, all this silt that Elisa can show you down the gully, we'll plant a lot of tea tree on it, and we'll plant some red gums and some silver wattles. They all like water, so we'll plant them in the silt, and that will stabilise that. And in some ways, we've returned the gully floor back to what it was probably 100 years ago, which there's some advantages in that. If you see just here, you can see how that water there is 12 inches deep, and Elisa's standing on the silt. So that 12-inch deep gully, that's what's been eroded over the years, and where this situation has actually filled that up again.
So in terms of the channelization of this gully due to the rabbit issue, and I guess stock being in it before we had this farm and managed it, how deep, people are getting a pretty good shot here of sort of the channel floor. How deep do you imagine it was before, I guess, colonisation and, farming intervention? Invasion, people invasion.
Some of these drainage lines in Australia would have been a series of ponds.
Okay.
And I'll just step over there while we're talking. This little flat bit here, this would have been the gully floor at one stage.
Right, so that's about a metre. That's a metre full from where you are to where I was standing down in the water.
And this drop off here, I think, would definitely be agriculturally induced.
Gee.
What I'm standing on here could have been more of a natural type erosion.
So do you think it's possible, with all the work we're doing and planting trees, and I've made all those rock weirs, I just do it by hand, and we've fenced this gully out and we keep stock out, do you think it's ever possible to ever take it back to what it was?
No.
Okay.
But what I look at is the permaculture principle, where you go from patterns to detail. And taking it back to what it was is the detail part. The pattern is trying to slow the water up, try and create this chain of ponds, keeping large numbers of grazing animals out, and letting the grass grow and the natural ecosystem regenerate.
Okay, I think that's exciting, and people are seeing this in real time. They're seeing a real disaster, but then they're also seeing, I guess, the outcomes of what you and I have done over a number of years. I remember in 2015, I think we planted, 2,000 trees up this gully, and it was hard work. We did it in our holidays. Landcare paid for the trees, but you and I planted them all, and you carried the trays of trees and I went behind you. And I will admit, sometimes when we're doing that work, I would rather be sitting at home reading a book, drinking a glass of wine and relaxing, and it can be very hard to stay motivated. We're always sore and tired, but I look at this now and I think, okay, that is why we do it.
The Australian Landcare system was funded by the government, and one of the really good things about it for us is it funds the trees and funds the materials for the fencing. So the fences you see either side of me here, that was funded by the Australian government, and I was responsible for making the fences and planting the trees. Now, unfortunately, and this is another mistake I've made because I just haven't done it right, some of the fencing in this country is tricky, and the sheep have periodically managed to get under the fence and get into this area. You can see here that they were in here a month ago when it was cold, and they grazed it. It's frustrating. They've grazed a lot of the trees I planted, but 5 years ago there were no trees here at all.
So one of the questions I think most people would have is, why do the sheep get in here? It's not something we often talk about, and if you don't know about our style of sheep or just farming in general, why and how do they get in here?
Because because you can see the soil, it's very sandy. You can see 1, 2, 3 layers of rock just through there. There's not a lot of clay in the soil. Now, it's a clay that binds onto the steel post and holds it firm. And when it's just sandy soil, sandy gravelly soil, the steel post can often just pop up.
Right.
And so with the little hollows and ridges we have around here, the fence is often trying to pull the steel post up anyway, and the sheep knock it and it loses its grip on the soil, and so it goes pop like that, and down the bottom it creates a hollow like that the sheep then just get under.
Now also we do have on this farm, because I know most people love our Australian native animals, and we do have wombats and kangaroos, and they cause a huge effect on the fences as well.
Yeah, not so much around here, it's up where we don't go as much. The wombats, we don't have many. In other parts of Australia, I have quite a few. The kangaroos, I used to see more until I built the fences, and the kangaroos are too smart. The kangaroos mainly stay next door because they've got much larger conventional style paddocks, and if they come onto our farm, they annoy us, but we annoy them.
So do they ever push under the fences though if the sheep have made one of those holes that you're talking about?
Yeah, and so when you see that, you can look at the wire on the fence and you can see the woolly hair from the sheep, the dorpers. You can see the red hair from any foxes going under it, and you can see the grey from the eastern grey kangaroos.
Now also you've got footage that you're going to put up on YouTube maybe in a week or so, but in this very gully about a week ago we got fantastic footage of an echidna. Do you want to talk through what happened then, and just one of those nice farming times?
We see echidnas on a regular basis, but not all the time. So if you come to visit, we can't say, oh, we'll show you an echidna. But lately, at this time of year, this is the end of the cold wet season, the start of the warming wet, the warming damp season. The echidnas are starting to get around. There's more insects around, and so we're starting to see them. I'm probably seeing one every couple of weeks. And I was watching one the other day, didn't know I was there, and I filmed him, and he was just walking around, and he could smell me. He was sticking his nose in the air, and it was fantastic. And I must have been watching him for 10 minutes. But I'll have that on YouTube soon. It'll be one of the echidna videos.
Fantastic.
I just want to show you down here. We'll just walk down here a little bit before I let you go. And you can see the implications of all this silt. It's an enormous ecological reaction to what's happened, isn't it?
Yeah, and I see those rock weirs, like I'm saying it, I made them, but so people can see what they are.
Elisa comes down and for the last few years she makes these rock walls, and each year she comes down and makes them bigger. And it's fantastic that they're here, and you can see them dotted down the gully here. If these weren't here, then all this eroded material, all this silt and sand would have gone down, way down into a dam.
And that's a little rush growing there. Is that new? How long's that been there?
Yeah. All these things have come since Elisa's done this rock work. You can see them all through there. So we've managed to keep the stock out mainly, but these little rock weirs have held the water back and allowed the ecological succession to happen. And for us, it started off with these rushes taking root and holding it together. So it's pretty exciting to see what's happening. And if you get down low and show people up that, you get a better perception of how all the tussocks are holding the soil together. Anyway, we just thought we'd try and get positive out of this disaster. Hope to get something out of it. And we'll see you again next time.
See you, everyone.